In this video, we'll talk about the labels in widgets. That is the widgets used for the displaying the content in your application. We will be talking about the labels, that is the one of the widget used as your labels in the application. So we'll tell you about the labels, how they are used, the syntax of the table, or you can say the syntax of the label, and followed by the hands on that. So moving ahead, we'll talk about the label. The label widget is the standard Tkinter widget used to display a text or image on the screen. Label can only display the text in a single font, but the text may span more than one line. The text displayed by this widget can be updated at any time you want. The label is the widget that the user just views but not interacts with. It is also possible to underline part of the text and span the text across the multiple lines. So the labels are just used to display the text and images. The label widget uses doubles, that is buffering, so you can update the content at any time without annoying flicker. To display the data that the user can manipulate in place, it's probably easier to use the canvas widget. Next, we'll talk about the syntax in your label. To create a label widget in a root window or frame parent, the syntax is very simple. Just use the keyword label followed by the master and option. You just have to specify what is to be displayed in it. Master in syntax represents the parent window. Then comes the option. Options is the list of most commonly used options for this widget. These options can be used as key value pairs separated by the commas. See, the simple program for the label representation is here on the screen. That is just for the text to get displayed. Then the constructor returns the new label widget. That is the label I'm using it. It will return me the new label widget in return of this program. Next, we have the options in the label. In this previous syntax, the syntax was your masters followed by the options. So there are many options associated with your label. We'll be talking about them one by one. Following, we have the list of the options which can be used with the label widget. Let's talk about them one by one. The very first is your anchor. This option controls where the text is positioned if the widget has more space than the text needs. The default is anchor is equals to center, which centers the text in the available space. Then we have is your BJ, that is the normal background color displayed behind the label and the indicator. Then we have is your bitmap. Setting this option to bitmap or image object while display that graphics on the label. In this case, if the image option is given, this option is ignored. Next we have is your BD, that is your border width, which sets the width of the border around the label, whereas your default is your 2 pixels. Next we have is your FJ. Talking about FJ is your foreground. That is, if you are displaying text or bitmap in this label, this option specifies the color of the text. If you are displaying a bitmap, this is the color that will appear at the position of the 1 bits in the bitmap. Next we have is your font. If you are displaying text in the label with your text option, then the font option specifies in which font that text is to be displayed. This option defines the font to be used in the label. The label can only contain text in single font. The default is the system specific. Next we have is your cursor. Talking about cursor, if you set this option to a cursor name, that is arrow, dot, etc., the mouse cursor will change to that pattern when it is over the label. This is just for which cursor to be shown when the mouse is moved over the label. The default is to use the standard cursor. Moving ahead, we have some more options in your label, that is your justify. Now justify specifies how multiple lines of the text will be aligned with respect to each other. Left for the flush left, right with all right or all letters in your capital for the right, justified. Now default is the center one. Just note that the position to position the text inside the widget, use the anchor tag instead of your justify. Next we have is your image. Image is just to display a static image in the label widget. Set this option to an image object. This option is for image displaying. The value should be photo image, bitmap image. It specifies like if it is specified, this takes precedence over the text and bitmap options. Next we have is your text variable. This is associated a text variable with your label. If the variable is changed, then the label text is updated accordingly. Then we have is your wrap length. Wrap length, you can limit the number of the characters in each line by setting this option to the desired number. This is given in the screen units, that is default is your 0, that is no wrapping means that the lines will be broken only at new lines. Next we have is your relief. Talking about relief, this specifies the appearance of decorative border around the label. Default one is your flat. The other variables, other available options are your sunken, raised, groven and rigid. Next we have is your text. Text displays one or more lines of the text in a label widget. Set this option to a string containing the text. The text can contain your new lines. Now, if the bitmap or image options are used, this option is completely ignored. Then we have is your height. That is, height is your vertical dimensions of your new frame. In simple words, the height of the labels is the lines. If this option is not set, the label will be sized to fit its content. If the label displays the text, the size is given in text units. If the label displays an image, the size is given in your pixels. Now, suppose if the size is set to 0 or omitted, it is calculated based on the label content present. So this was all about your options in your labels. Next, we'll talk about the hands-on. That is, we'll look into the hands-on, the various programs we have. Now have a simple look over here. That is the very basic example. Now the very first line is importing the tickinter. That is, from tickinter I'm importing all my functionalities. Now the very first line is making the main loop. Like in the steps I have declared you, I have shown you the very first was to make the main window. With your main window TK, we are making the window. So the display, that is the root application name, the application window name will be my root over here. So whatever widgets I want to present, I'll be referring this root. Then only the widgets, the following widget will be presented on my window over here. Now in the next line, I'm using the photo image, that is the image photo. In that I have provided the GIF file, the file name over here, and the label I have specified with my image which I have mentioned above and simply packed it. And root.main loop simply sets the execution of all these on your main loop over here. So in this very simple example, all your steps are covered. That is importing your tickinter, then comes your creating your main window, then adding your widgets, and then comes the main loop, that is running your main loop. So we'll just run it and see the output on the screen so that you can get it better. That is, you can see this is the output of your screen, which your TK is the tickinter, the name I have provided. Then comes an image which has been showed on your label. So with the label, I have just referred a image. Now we have another example, that is for this example I'm using various kinds of a length, text and entering, and that is configuring them. You can have a look on the screen. That is, the very first line is same in your all examples, importing your module ticketer, making the window with your root. I have called the image, that is your photo image, the one I was calling in previous, simply packed it on my screen. Packing is again making it display on your screen over here. Now with the label, I have defined that at my root, there should be a message, there should be a text that this is an example with an anchor as your W, that is the position, background as my green color. Again, I have provided a text with interesting to code where I have given the border as your 30 and the font I have given as your Persuade with your FG as your blue, anchor as your north, cursor as your pirate. Again with your text as your tick enter example, hide various configuration, hide width and your justify and relief I have provided over here. Simply packing at your specific position, that is your pad X and your pad Y. So let's see the output of this. Now this is the example, this is the output of the example code I have provided, where this is an example with your background color as your green. Interesting code, when I am taking the code, that is the cursor on my interesting code, it's giving me the sign of the pirates, and as well as the enter example with the border line I have provided. The height and the border I gave was to specify the text over here. Now, if I have not specified it, then it will just use the entire content to prevent on my screen. Moving ahead, we have the another example for the bitmap. Let's see that. Now in the bitmap, I have simply given the entire problem, that is the entire coding within the inverted commas, defining the width and everything that is in your bits format, simply stored in your bitmap, and that bitmap I'm passing it in my code, that is the bitmap image over here. The data is my bitmap. So with the bitmap, you have to pass the proper pixels, the values of the pixels that you need to embed in your code. So those pixels I've stored in my bitmap with the inverted commas, passed in your data. Foreground color I've specified as my black, background I've specified as my yellow. So simply running it, calling it on my main loop. While running it, you can have a look on the screen, that is showing me the bitmap image. At a certain point, the points values I have provided, that is very small on my screen.